The doorbell rang at 8:23 that morning. I remember because I'd just finished placing the silver spoon on the saucer, exactly how Nate used to like it. The clock made its small click as it turned. Outside, a boy stood awkwardly, barely meeting my eye. He thrust out a grocery bag, no card, no explanation, and disappeared before I could ask who sent it. Inside were flowers. Not fresh. Not dead. That awful in-between state, like they'd waited too long in someone's back seat. I laid them on the table, beside the sandwich I had made for myself the night before. Tuna and dill. It had felt right to prepare it in advance. Something about having one small thing ready. My 75th birthday. The house made no sound. The phone, too. No messages. No calls. No voices singing off-key from 3 time zones away. Just me, my sandwich, and the hum of the refrigerator. At noon, a video call blinked to life. My son's face, bright, too bright. Forced. The light behind him was all wrong for his apartment. I knew that cathedral spire, Rome, maybe. Florence. Behind him, a woman laughed. She wasn't speaking English. He said he was home. I didn't argue. I only nodded. But inside me, something shifted. Just slightly. Like the first crack in ice before the lake gives way. I didn't live a loud life. I don't think I ever wanted to. But it was full, and orderly, and deeply mine. I kept lists on yellow notepads and labeled jars even if they held the same kind of beans. 30 years at the state archives taught me that care, careful hands, careful records, careful tone. After Nate died, I wore his scarf every morning for a year. Charcoal wool with one corner unraveling. He'd left it on the coat hook the day before the stroke. I wrapped it once around my neck before stepping outside, and somehow it helped. I didn't break down. Not really. 2 weeks I stayed home, made soup I didn't eat, folded the same pile of linens more times than necessary. Then one Tuesday, I ironed my blouse and walked back into the archives like nothing had changed. Because some things, I thought, needed to be preserved. Not only the books. My son, David, was finishing law school then. Bright, polished, so certain of himself. When he asked me for help with tuition, I gave it without flinching. When he needed a car, I sold Nate's old records to help him buy one. When he asked for access to the savings account, to help me manage things, I agreed. Not because I didn't understand what I was signing. But because I was his mother. Because when you carry someone in your body, you don't keep receipts. I always thought loyalty had its own quiet power. That it bought you something, safety, perhaps. Recognition. I was wrong. That birthday afternoon, after the call, I sat still for a long while. The flowers were beginning to droop. I made tea I didn't drink. Then, I don't know what compelled me, I opened the drawer where I kept my old laptop. The one I hadn't touched since before Nate passed. It still worked. The screen flickered once, then came alive. My password, Nate's old library number, still opened it. I clicked 3 times. First, the joint account. Then the savings. Then the card he said was only for emergencies. And there it was. Plain as morning light on the kitchen tile. Boutique hotels in Amalfi. Dinner bills for 4. Spa treatments, wine tastings, first-class flights. $12,000 for a single weekend marked client retreat. Another 6 for a hotel I knew wasn't in this country. My name was on the account. But not on the itinerary. The spreadsheet ran like a confession. Only they never expected me to read it. I sat back, my palms suddenly damp against the cool laminate of the desk. A chill moved through me, not from shock, not from rage. Something quieter. The kind of stillness that comes when a puzzle snaps into place. They believed I wasn't looking. And they were right, until now. I rose, and walked down the hall. I hadn't touched Nate's study since he died. His glasses still sat on the desk. His calendar, July 2017, still hung beside the door. The cedar scent had faded, but the room still felt like him. He'd always been methodical. Trusted process. Before he died, he told me, not yet. Not until you're 75. I'd thought he was just stalling, protecting me from the inevitable decisions that come when one half of a pair disappears. But that day, I remembered his voice. The pause. The precision of his phrasing. Not until you're 75. Behind the row of legal tomes on the Constitution, the ones he said were outdated but still kept, was a small key taped to the shelf. I held it for a moment, feeling its weight. It fit the safe tucked beneath his desk drawer. Inside, one envelope. Heavy cream paper, his handwriting on the front, for Margaret, when it is time. I opened it with hands that didn't shake. There was no letter. Just a flash drive. Several notarized documents. A card. Maxwell Harlan, retired federal investigator. The documents were detailed. A timeline of transactions. Bank account changes. An email printout between David and someone named Kara discussing discrete transfer strategies and minimizing inheritance tax before she notices. A note from the lawyer confirming David's attempt to rename the joint account under a family trust. They'd been planning. For years. And Nate had known. He hadn't left me a fortune. He'd left me something better. A map. And a match. I slept that night with the key on my nightstand. The next morning, I dialed the number on the card. Maxwell Harlan answered on the second ring. He didn't say hello. Just cleared his throat and waited. Mr. Harlan, I said, this is Margaret Lawton. You knew my husband, Nathaniel. Another pause, then a low, graveled voice, I was wondering when I'd hear from you. He didn't ask why I was calling. Just told me he could meet that afternoon. No small talk, no pleasantries. Nate must have chosen him for that exact reason. I appreciated the absence of false comfort. We met at a diner just off the highway, the kind where everything smells faintly of bacon grease and burnt coffee, and where no one asks too many questions. He wore a brown wool coat with scuffed elbows and carried a briefcase older than my marriage. He didn't sit until I nodded. What do you want to know? He asked, eyes scanning me like a document. Everything. He didn't flinch. Just slid a small folder across the table and began. Your son's name appeared on no fewer than 6 joint financial instruments with your credentials. 3 of those had been modified in the past 2 years to shift primary ownership to a trust entity, the Margaret Lawton Revocable Trust, except that trust, as Mr. Harlan explained, was not legally filed. It was a document in name only. A shell. In essence, he said, they built a paper trail that made it look like you'd already consented to transfer the bulk of your estate. If it had continued unchecked, they could have locked you out entirely. I stared at the folder, the neat columns of numbers, the cold efficiency of it all. And he would have gotten away with it? I asked. Yes, Harlan said without hesitation. Most people don't notice until it's too late. Especially when they're grieving. Or trusting. I pressed my napkin into my lap, willing my voice to stay even. What do I do? He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something shift behind his eyes. Not pity. Not concern. Just quiet acknowledgement. You take it back, he said. Piece by piece. That night, I began. First, the joint accounts. I froze them. Not out of panic, out of precision. Then I contacted the bank and revoked all external access. Passwords changed. Power of attorney revoked. My name, my initials, my control, reinstated in full. Then came the credit cards. 3 of them, each under a different reward program, each one siphoning hundreds for international bookings and expensive meals. I flagged them all. The next morning, Max called to say the cards had declined at a resort in Marseille. They tried again. Twice, he said. I didn't respond. Just stared at the sandwich I was slicing, turkey, cranberry, sharp mustard. The kind Nate used to request on Sundays. By the 3rd day, I had access to every account that bore my name. I went to the notary's office and signed fresh statements. No noise. No scene. I didn't send a message. I sent silence. Let the absences speak. When David called, frantic, faking calm, I let it go to voicemail. The transcript read, "Hey Mom, strange thing, my card's not working, just checking if you got any fraud alerts. No rush, just let me know." No rush. He called again an hour later. Then again. I answered the 4th time. David. His voice caught. "Mom, thank God. Listen, there's been a weird issue." "I know." "A beat." "Then, you know." I set the knife down on the counter, wiped my hands on the towel. My voice was soft. Flat. "I know everything." He didn't speak. I could hear background noise, wind, footsteps, maybe the soft echo of a lobby. Then, quieter. "It's not what you think. They never think it is. Mom, please." "I'm not angry," I said. And I wasn't. "I'm adjusting. You don't understand. You were in Florence, weren't you? The call. That cathedral, Santa Croce." He didn't deny it. "I saw the transactions," I added. "You used my name to book the tickets." A long, brittle silence. Then. "Mom, it wasn't supposed to go this far." It had gone exactly as far as he meant it to. "I know you think I don't see things. But I've catalogued entire civil wars by citation. You think I can't follow a paper trail?" I was trying to manage things. "Manage me," I corrected. He exhaled sharply, a kind of half-sob, half-laugh. "You make it sound like I'm the villain." I didn't reply. That's when he said it, low and quick, "It was Kara's idea." Of course it was. But that didn't matter. "You let it happen," I said. "You chose convenience over integrity. You chose yourself." "Mom. I just wanted to make sure you were taken care of." I interrupted. "I've been taking care of myself longer than you've been alive." The line went quiet. I ended the call. I didn't shout. I didn't threaten. I simply filed away every document, every file, every copy. Then I packed a small overnight bag, not for leaving, but for clarity. I went to the archives the next morning. My old badge still worked. The head of department, a kind man named Elliot, offered me tea and a quiet space to work. "You're not back, are you?" he asked with a tentative smile. "No," I said. "I'm just reorganizing." It was true. But not just the papers. In the archives, everything made sense. Boxes labeled with care. Manuscripts preserved with cotton gloves. Each item touched only when necessary, and always with respect. I sat in a small back room where the windows were narrow and the dust motes moved like breath through stillness. I unfolded Nate's blueprint one piece at a time. The flash drive contained more than I expected, records of conversations, email printouts, even scanned letters that had been intercepted. Kara had written to a financial advisor asking how to unify generational wealth under one authority. The phrasing made my skin crawl. They hadn't just planned to control my accounts. They'd planned to dissolve me, to fold me into a system where I no longer had a name, just a designation, prior generation. Silent contributor. Benefactor. No, I thought. Not anymore. Max connected me with a forensic accountant named Olivia Morse. She looked about 35, wore soft sweaters and no makeup, and had a voice like steady rain. "I'll track the leak," she said after reviewing the documents. "And then I'll help you close it." It was a strange kind of power, watching someone half my age walk me through the layers of a scheme designed to erase me. She explained how the Shell Trust operated like a sieve, moving funds in increments too small to notice unless you knew where to look. They'd underestimated me. And her. Within 10 days, we'd mapped every transaction. Cross-referenced every name. I revoked power of attorney. Filed a cease authorization for any third-party fund management. Froze all associated cards. They were still in Europe when the final freeze went into effect. I didn't warn them. I didn't answer the last-minute calls. Let the alerts come. Let the balance alerts buzz. Back home, I spent quiet mornings in the garden. The hydrangeas were beginning to brown. I trimmed them slowly, methodically. The scent of damp earth steadied me. The day they returned, a voicemail came at 6:07 p.m. "Mom, we're back. There's some confusion with the accounts. Can we come by?" I didn't reply. At 8:14, headlights swept across my driveway. I had prepared tea. Not out of kindness. Out of habit. The pot was old pewter. The cups, mismatched, one from a holiday market, one with a chip on the handle. The knock was polite. 3 times, soft. I opened the door and stepped aside. David entered first. Kara followed, sharp, elegant, all angles. Her smile was flat. "We're not here to argue," she began. "Good," I said, pouring tea. David reached for a cup. His hand trembled slightly. I didn't comment. "We noticed some issues," he said. "With the cards. The trust access." "It's been corrected," I replied. "Corrected?" Kara's voice was icy. "Why weren't we consulted?" "Because you're not entitled to consultation," I said evenly. David opened his mouth, then closed it. "You gave us access," Kara said, voice rising. "You signed the papers." "I revoked them." "That's not how this works." I looked at David. "You forged a filing," I said. "You claimed I had transferred funds into a trust that doesn't exist." "It was a placeholder," he muttered. "Legally void," I said. "You attempted to claim assets that don't belong to you." Kara stood. "Do you really want to make this a battle?" I didn't move. "You can sit down," I said. "Or you can leave." She stared at me, and for the first time, I saw fear. Not fear of consequence. Fear of exposure. Fear of losing control. David didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the teacup. "You were never going to give it up, were you?" he asked quietly. "No," I said. "Because it's mine." He nodded slowly. His shoulders sank. Kara turned to him, incredulous. "You're just going to let her?" "I'm not letting her do anything," he said. "She's undoing what we did." They left in silence. No slamming doors. No curses. Just the click of heels and the sound of gravel under tires. That night, I opened the drawer in Nate's desk and placed every document inside. I locked it. Then I opened the study window and let the air in. The night smelled like pine and rain. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was something else. Whole. The next morning, I woke before the sun. The house felt different, not emptier, but clearer. As if something that had long weighed down the walls had finally lifted. The quiet wasn't oppressive. It was mine. I brewed coffee, black and strong, and took it out to the garden. The grass was still wet. Dew clung to the soles of my slippers, and the stone bench near the maple was cold through my robe. I sat anyway. For 20 minutes, I let myself breathe. No spreadsheets. No documents. Just the smell of damp earth and the soft click of branches shifting in the breeze. Then I returned to the house and began the final part. I scheduled a full audit. Not of the finances, that had been settled. Of the house. Every drawer, every closet, every box stored in the attic since Nate's first term on the bench. I wasn't purging. I was reclaiming. Kara had redecorated the guest room during one of their visits, soft neutrals, expensive throws, impersonal art. I stripped it bare. Painted the walls a dusty green, like the inside of a sage leaf. Hung a small watercolor of a stone bridge I'd walked across in Oxford 40 years ago. It wasn't about taste. It was about memory. The kitchen followed. The coffee maker David insisted I replace, gone. My old percolator came back out. I polished the kettle Nate gave me on our 25th anniversary. Brass, dented, stubborn as I was. Each room told a different story, and I rewrote them in my own hand. By the third week, I had restored the house to a kind of quiet dignity. I moved slower now, but with more certainty. I didn't rush decisions. I read labels. I kept only what fit in the life I was choosing, not the life I was handed, or the one I was nearly written out of. They called a few times. Emails followed. Kara tried to appeal to emotion. David struggling to understand your reaction. I didn't respond. Then she tried fear. Legal action could be taken. That made me smile. She didn't know I'd already spoken to Maxwell again, not for protection, but for precision. We'd filed statements, preserved every correspondence. If they came for me, they'd find themselves surrounded by records, notarized and clear. Then came the final message. David. A single sentence, I'm sorry. I didn't delete it. I didn't reply. It was the first thing he'd said that was fully his. Winter arrived early that year. Snow came before Thanksgiving. The tree outside the front window bent under the weight, and I stood there one evening, cocoa in hand, watching it sway but not break. That's how I felt. Bent. Weathered. But not broken. In December, I received a letter from the Vermont College of Law and Preservation. They wanted to offer me a curatorial position, part-time, overseeing the rare legal documents Nate once helped preserve. I didn't hesitate. I said yes. By January, I was waking at 6, catching the 7:10 trolley into town, and spending my days surrounded by the smell of parchment and dust. My granddaughter Kate, quiet, bookish, mostly ignored by her parents, asked if she could visit the archives with me. She now comes twice a week. Files folders. Brings me tea. She asks questions, listens with those wide, uncertain eyes that remind me who David used to be. We haven't spoken of the others. We don't need to. One afternoon, she turned to me and asked, "Why do people pretend not to see what's wrong?" I thought for a long time before answering. Because if they admit it, they have to act. She nodded slowly. And kept filing. Spring came. The crocuses pushed through the snow. A small ceremony was held at the college to honor archival contributions. I stood quietly in a borrowed blazer. When they handed me the plaque, I said only this. On my 75th birthday, I sat alone with a sandwich. My family used my money to fly first class across an ocean. Today, I preserve history for a living. And this life is mine again. On the first day of summer, I opened the safe again. Not because I needed anything, I knew every page by heart now, but because I wanted to see it one last time. The blueprint. Nate's handwriting. The silent faith of a man who knew the world would change after he was gone, and still believed I would find my way. I held that envelope for a moment longer than usual. Then I tucked it back, locked the safe, and turned toward the light filling the hall. Downstairs, Kate was setting 2 cups on the table. "Mint or chamomile?" she called. "Chamomile," I answered, and smiled when I heard her pour. We sat by the window, the lilacs just starting to bloom. "Grandma," she said, brushing crumbs from her notebook, "I think I want to study document law. Like you and Grandpa." I looked at her, this quiet, thoughtful girl who had learned not from my lectures but from my example, and felt something warm begin to build in my chest. Not pride. Not even joy. Continuance. The story wasn't ending. It was unfolding. Later that week, I received a letter in a crisp envelope, thick stock, embossed seal. It was from the Historical Preservation Board. My application, the one Kate and I had drafted together late one afternoon when snow lashed the windows and the radiator hissed, had been accepted. My family home, the one they'd tried to strip me from, was now under protected designation. A historical site, listed with full archival protection. They couldn't sell it. They couldn't claim it. They couldn't erase it. It was mine. And now, it would outlast all of us. When I pinned the certificate to the study wall, I paused, then placed Nate's photograph beneath it. Not because he saved me, but because he believed I would save myself. And I did.